The new expansion, Thrones of Blood, combines the gothic allure of vampires, the ruthless politics of tyranny, and the macabre elegance of death into one cohesive experience that fundamentally changes how players rule, conquer, and survive. Alongside the paid DLC comes the free Gargoyle update, bringing balance tweaks, new interface improvements, and most notably, a sweeping rework of the beloved dark culture. At the heart of Thrones of Blood lies the Elder Vampire, a brand new ruler type who embodies the archetype of the eternal predator. Unlike mortal rulers, elder vampires are undead beings cursed and blessed in equal measure. They do not regenerate naturally and are vulnerable to sunlight, suffering penalties to damage and healing when standing beneath the burning skies of the surface world. To counteract this, they bring with them the power to spread a new terrain type called Sunless. This corrupted land shrouds the world in permanent gloom, draining the vitality of living creatures while sustaining the undead. Within these shadow domains, vampires regain their strength, regenerating health and thriving where others wither. Sunless terrain becomes a strategic resource, a creeping infection that changes how and where battles are fought, as well as how empires expand. The Elder Vampire's domain is one of eternal dusk, where the living must adapt or perish. The Elder Vampire does not merely differ in theme. Their entire playstyle diverges from other rulers. Instead of building a wizard tower, they establish a vampire castle, a bastion of dark nobility that channels forbidden power and houses unique spells. Every mortal hero they recruit is transformed into a vampire thrall who shares their master's curse and contributes part of their experience points to the Elder Vampire. In this way, the vampire ruler grows ever stronger through their servants' victories. Even in defeat, their immortality ensures a grim continuity. Vampires persist through loss, feeding upon the vitality of others and refusing to die. This dynamic creates an empire that literally thrives on bloodshed, where death feeds growth and conquest feeds immortality. Running parallel to this vampiric evolution is the complete rework of the dark culture, a long-requested overhaul that arrives free for all players. The developers at Triumph Studios have split the dark culture into two distinct subcultures, the cult of tyranny and the cult of death, each embodying a different philosophy of domination. Together, they redefine the identity of the Dark Lords who walk the line between necromancer and tyrant, giving them sharper thematic focus and deeper strategic variety. The cult of tyranny is a culture built upon power, coercion, and control. In their worldview, the defeated are not killed but made to serve. When a hero falls before them, they are taken captive rather than slain, imprisoned within the tyrant's cells as a living bargaining chip. These hostages are more than trophies. They are a vital resource. Each captive increases the ruler's influence over free cities, making diplomatic integration faster, cheaper, and more reliable. In effect, the cult of tyranny trades mercy for manipulation, turning former enemies into instruments of allegiance. On the battlefield, their armies specialize in exploiting weakness. Their units reduce enemies' status resistance, stack debuffs relentlessly, and drain vitality through the aptly named exploit vulnerability ability. When a weakened foe falls, dark soldiers heal themselves, feasting on the suffering of others. The cult of death, by contrast, finds beauty and purpose in sacrifice. Where the tyrant enslaves, the death cult exalts in destruction. Their warriors grow stronger with every life that ends, ally or foe alike. Each death grants them mortal blessing, increasing their hit points and critical chance up to extraordinary levels. In long, grueling battles, this power compounds until their forces become unstoppable juggernauts drenched in gore. The cult of death encourages a playstyle that celebrates expendability. Send forth hordes of summons, skeletons, or weak units to die gloriously, each one empowering the survivors. Their cities contain crypts, where fallen heroes are embalmed instead of sold. These embalmed sacrifices become a mystical resource, used to fuel devastating spells and build specialized structures like the Soul Vault, which provides vast amounts of knowledge and grants governors passive experience every turn. Thrones of Blood brings with it a host of new magical tomes that expand on these grim themes. The most prominent is the Tome of the Bloodrite, a Tier 1 tome that allows players to construct their entire strategy around blood magic from the earliest turns. Its spells revolve around sacrifice and regeneration, rewarding players who dare to harm their own units in pursuit of power. The tome introduces the Blood Cultist, a Tier 2 battle mage obsessed with the ecstasy of bloodletting. Through abilities like Hemorrhage Bolt and Scarlet Plague, these cultists inflict a new status effect called Blood Parasite, a corrupted form of bleeding that can infect even the bloodless. When a unit afflicted with Blood Parasite dies, a writhing blood maggot bursts from its corpse, a grotesque Tier 1 creature that consumes bodies on the battlefield, growing stronger and eventually exploding in a shower of gore that spreads the infection further. The Tome of the Bloodrite also introduces two dark rituals, Rite of Bloodletting and Rite of Life Leeching, that epitomize the cruel duality of blood magic. The first wounds a friendly unit to make surrounding enemies bleed. The second inflicts pain to empower nearby allies with strengthened and life drain. These spells transform every engagement into a balancing act between self-harm and empowerment. Complementing them are enchantments like blood-carved runes, which brand your entire race with scarlet sigils that increase world map regeneration and allow attacks to bypass enemy status resistance. Blood-drinking blades and sanguine focus ensure that both melee and magical units can capitalize on bleeding targets, turning the battlefield into a web of parasitic synergy. The tome's accompanying Blood Altar Province improvement rewards victory with bursts of mana and increased production from nearby farms, a thematic touch that suggests your citizens are feeding the war machine with their lifeblood. Higher-tier tomes, such as the Tome of Torment, further develop the idea of pain as a weapon. The Tome of Torment allows rulers to turn enemy actions against them, punishing morale and twisting aggression into suffering. Its abilities reflect the cruel philosophy of rulers who see battle not as a means to victory, but as a theater of agony. Together, these tomes form a new school of dark magic that perfectly complements both the Cult of Death and the Cult of Tyranny, providing new paths for Shadow and Chaos Affinity empires. There's a new exotic mount, the Shrieking Bat, allowing your heroes to soar across the night sky on the backs of monstrous chiropterans. There are new weapons and aesthetics, including ornate swords, whips, and gothic armor, inspired by classic vampire hunters and Baroque nobility. The developers have cited Castlevania as an influence, and it shows in the art direction. Blood reds, pale whites, and stained glass motifs dominate the new designs. Even the Empire menus and character customization screens ooze atmosphere, making the act of building your vampiric dynasty feel appropriately theatrical. Underpinning all of this is the Gargoyle update, a substantial free patch launching alongside the DLC. It refines AI behavior, rebalances numerous units, and introduces new quality-of-life features, but its most significant contribution is the dark culture rework itself. This update ensures that even players who don't buy the DLC will benefit from the mechanical depth and replayability that the Cult of Tyranny and Cult of Death bring to the game. In essence, Thrones of Blood does not isolate its content behind paywalls. It reshapes the entire foundation of one of Age of Wonders 4's most popular cultures. In practice, the new systems interact beautifully with the existing mechanics of empire building. The Sunless terrain, for example, forces players to rethink geography. Controlling shadowed regions becomes vital for vampire survival, while enemies suffer attrition when they invade. The hostage system adds a new layer to diplomacy, transforming warfare from mere conquest into a cycle of exploitation and leverage. Even small details like the embalmed sacrifice economy or the self-harming rites of blood magic reinforce the overarching message that every decision has a cost. Triumph Studios has managed to weave theme and gameplay together with uncommon precision. Visually, from the crimson shimmer of the Blood Altar to the gloomy luminescence of Sunless terrain, every element supports the aesthetic of gothic horror and political decay. The new leader models, both pureblood and hybrid vampires, are among the most striking the series has seen. They exude arrogance and tragedy in equal measure, each a monarch trapped by their own immortality. Even the new challenge realms, like the Sun Islands covered in perpetual dusk, provide a haunting playground for players to test their blood-fueled empires against AI rivals or other aspiring overlords. This expansion is both a love letter to classic vampire fiction and a meaningful evolution of the game's strategic systems. For veterans of the series, it offers an entirely new way to build empires, not through benevolence or enlightenment, but through hunger and domination. And for newcomers drawn by the allure of blood and power, it provides one of the most cohesive and satisfying fantasy experiences the series has ever delivered.